Welcome to Independent Wrestling Profiles. Thank you so much for tuning in. In this installment, we're going to be talking to a wrestler who has taken the Maritimes by storm, the Newfoundland Nightmare Justin Newhook. Please enjoy. When did you become a wrestling fan?
The first time I saw Undertaker walk on screen. I can't remember exactly when it was. I can't remember what match it was or what show it was or what date or anything like that. I just remember being at my father's or my grandfather's, one or the other, and Undertaker walked by. And it's like, oh, well, that's interesting. That's what first drew me into wrestling. Not stuff that happened in the ring or nothing like that. It was just the character of the Undertaker. It was like, oh, I'm interested in whatever this guy's doing.
Were you trying to watch it before that and it just didn't grip you? Or was that kind of like the first time you really saw it and were just like, wow, what a presence?
I think that was just like my first memory. Like I was around it before for years. I just don't remember anything about it besides that time.
Who did you like outside of The Undertaker? Who were the guys that you really liked?
I always liked the bad guys. Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, any bad guy I liked. $1 Million Man. The only good guys I liked were Heart Foundation. I don't know if it was because they were Canadian or if it was because they were just really good. I'm sure it's a combination of both, but as a kid, I wouldn't have realized how great they were. So I think just as a kid, it was because they were Canadian. And then after that, it became because they were so damn good.
Was there a point where you decided that you didn't just want to be a fan, you wanted to actually do this yourself?
Never had the option in Newfoundland, especially from the west coast of Newfoundland. Never had the option to really train or anything like that. There was some backyard wrestling happening. I just didn't get into that. And then I left for Fort McMurray, did the trades, and then the military for 10 years. So it just never became an option for me until I was like halfway through my military career. So
you're doing other things in life, but did you still have this feeling kind of in the back of your mind that professional wrestling is somewhere where you would like to be, something that you would like to be involved in?
I always wanted to be like on a stage, not like, oh, all attention on me, but I always wanted to entertain without knowing that that's what I wanted to do. I always wanted to make people laugh, have a good time, try to find the lighter moments of a situation. Not take things seriously, but sometimes you just have to let things go and just have fun. And that's one thing I've learned in wrestling is the most fun I have is when I'm just having fun in it. Like telling a story, having a good time, but like there's matches where I'm just giggling to myself or to my tag partner or to my opponent because I'm just having such a good time. It's like, oh, now we're going into the next spot, but it's like I'm just giggling.
I love how you describe it as such a positive thing, but then I see you in the ring and you are just such an imposing, this menacing figure. But it's like, no, I love to laugh, man. I just love to laugh.
Love to laugh. And there's times in those matches that I'm being like so serious, but where I'm so close to like the referee, I'll say something and get the referee laughing, and then they'll try to get me back at it, or like I'll be crawling towards them like. And I'll start reaching for their laces and try to undo their laces on their sneakers and stuff like that. It's just,
you're trying to crack people, aren't you?
Yeah, just like when I heard the story of Owen Hart, I can't remember who it was against, but they were telling the story about every time during the match, every time that that Owen would pin them, when they get back up, their boots were more untied, and they didn't see him doing it. Or they'd put him, or he'd get put in a hold by Owen, and the next thing you know, his boot's like halfway undone. He's like, I didn't see him do it, I didn't feel him do it, nothing like that. So like that's the type of fun that, of course, still be safe about it. Like if you're just running a bunch of spots, you don't want to be doing that. But if you're having a match like they would have back then, absolutely. So
I find it interesting that you reference like The Undertaker as one of your first experiences. And you constantly hear about interviews where guys are saying that they're just trying to get him to break character. They're trying to get him to crack. And it's just like, is just like you, I guess, but the other way around. You're trying to get the other people to break character.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you want to entertain. You want to be a performer, but it's just not in the cards where you're from. You're traveling around. Clearly, at some point, it happened because you are a wrestler.
Yeah.
So where does that shift happen where you're like, okay, I can train in this. I can do this. I actually want to do this.
I was getting ready to go for deployment with my buddy Sean, and we went to a show and watching. It was very basic, like a curtain. There was a screen for entrances, but like most of the lights were left on and stuff like that. But some of the talent in the ring were just really good. And this is the first time I think I saw an independent show besides two very small ones in Newfoundland. So this is the first time I saw an independent show in my eyes were like, oh, these guys are taking it seriously. And some of the wrestlers are just amazing. And then on the flip side, some of the other wrestlers, in my eyes, I was like, shit. If they can get in the ring and do this, if they're getting paid to do this, like, I could do it. And then I didn't think anything of it. And then I went on deployment for like 7 months. And then we came back, and then we saw another independent show. And this one was a bit better. A little bit better production. Lights were focused on the ring. They had guardrails. Some of the talent were even better than last time. And then once again, some of the other talent. They're filling a spot, but like, I could do that. And then 2 or 3 days later, I got a message from my buddy Sean. And he's like, I found a school that's through the company that we just saw. So I went out. Luckily, very fortunate. Had money from deployment. Went out, paid for it. And I took my first bump. And I've been addicted ever since. It wasn't a great bump. It wasn't like a flat, perfect bump by any means, but the first bump I took, I went, oh, okay.
Was any of that influenced by being in the crowd at the independent shows? Because once you're actually in there and you're feeling the energy and you're participating and perhaps there's a little bit more involvement, did that actually help spurn you forward where you're like, well, I'd love to be on the receiving end of this?
I think it was just more... The second that I realized it was more attainable, like it was a thing that, because coming from Newfoundland, we never saw a lot of independent wrestling, and the first bit of wrestling I saw, like WWE live, I think I saw Rey Mysterio's first like dark house match with WWE, or one of his first ones, and and then I saw Jeff Hardy and all those guys, but I was like 16, 17 when that happened. So all up until then, I never seen wrestling up close to know what that type of environment felt like. And then when I saw the independent shows, it's like, oh, I want to be on the other end of that and like getting people's emotions going and getting people angry and happy and upset and crying. Like, oh, when I've made fans cry, oh, such a good feeling.
But you're coming from a military background at this point, Navy, I believe you said. You must have been already in great shape, and you're a taller performer. Like, you probably already had a physique that was already kind of ready-made to start doing this.
I was in half decent shape, I guess. I've always been like an athletic person, but always on like the B level. I played B level teams in high school and stuff like that, and it was partly because I didn't take things seriously enough and I just wanted to play sports. Like, I didn't care about winning or losing, anything like that. It was just about like, oh, we're going out and playing a game of basketball? Hell yeah, let's go. And then if we lost, it's like, all right, well, that sucked, but let's learn from it and try to be better. I wasn't into being yelled at by coaches because I'm a teenager that I'm still learning my own motor functions and stuff like that I'm going to get yelled at because I dropped the ball or something. That's not the vibe that I'm going for. I did amateur wrestling for a bit in high school as well, and then it was like kind of the same thing where I didn't take seriously enough. And the coach was amazing. He was awesome. I was a teenager. You know what I mean? Like, unless a teenager's very driven or like has someone to guide them into those things, I went and did teenager things. That's what I focused on.
But you're not starting from ground zero, though. Like,
no,
you are.
Definitely wasn't from ground zero. Like I said, I was always active, playing softball, baseball, basketball, ball hockey, touch football, those type of things. So when I got into wrestling, the movements weren't an issue for me. It was the control of like throwing punches, clotheslines, kicks, those type of things. Because like you never, even when you're a kid, either you're completely missing as a kid when you're like wrestling with your buddies, or you're hitting them as hard as you can, and you don't realize the difference. So that was a huge thing for me, and it didn't take super long for me to understand it, but the movements and understanding things like that wasn't an issue for me because I locked it all in as like musical. Everything has a beat, everything has a rhythm. So it might be 1-4, 1-3. Okay.
So you take that first bump, you're hooked. You're now working your way through wrestling school. What part of it are you finding to be the biggest challenge? And what part of it is kind of maybe coming a little more naturally to you?
The biggest challenge in training itself would have been just getting your body used to taking bumps. Because in training, you're taking a lot of bumps throughout the run of the day. In a match, you're not taking nearly as many. You know what I mean? So it's like your body needs to get used to them. And they say it's like build up a callus to running the ropes. I think that, looking back, that was the hardest part for me, was not the timing of running the ropes. That took a couple days to lock down, but it was the feeling of the ropes on your back and causing that bruising. Like after pandemic, that was the worst part, getting used to being in the ring again, was running the ropes again. Just that hitting it, and then like a day later, you can just feel like that whole tender spot underneath your shoulder blade. And like, well, even to this day, I still got to work on cardio, so I can't say I've gotten that locked down.
So what gets you through the whole like training? Any influences, trainers, friends that really helped motivate, inspire you to see this through right till the end?
Having my buddy Sean there that was in the military helped a lot, but he had to leave probably about 3/4 of the way through because military, he had to go on deployment or on a sail or some tasking. And I made friends with a couple of the people there. I'm still great friends with Thad. He still wrestles to this day. I think it was just, I was very fortunate to have the military training from before. So like getting through basic training was 14 weeks. And it's not easy. It's not the most difficult thing in the world, but it's not easy. And I took that day by day. Like that's the mindset you kind of need to have. You can't stress yourself out about 2 weeks down the road because there's so much happening right now. That's kind of the mindset I have with wrestling. I just need to get through today. If I get through today, then I got tomorrow. And then I get through tomorrow. Like that's all it was just day by day by day by day. And very fortunate to have that mindset from the military.
So you finished school, and what's the next step? You're just going to wrestling shows, trying to help out as ring crew, trying to make connections to get booked. How does the step look going from finishing training to actually setting foot in the ring as a performer?
So I was very fortunate when I got in that there was a company, and looking back on it, like they were hot-shotting the town, like they were just bringing in as many names as they could because they had like money for a TV show and everything. But once I started training, that school was used, like all the trainees, the students were used at shows to help set up the ring. I was one of the only ones that had a car, or a reliable car at the time, so I was the one running around getting the talent phone. So I was extremely fortunate to be like driving around AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, Colt Cabana, Matt Sydal, and like there's more that will pop up now. Like when I'm thinking about it, it'll pop up like in this chat. But I got to be around these guys that would sit down after the shows. I was the one taking them out to Freeman's, the one that I took you to. It was a different one. It was a one in a different location, but that restaurant, and just sit down and just be the guy that is just listening to them tell stories, not saying a word, just eating, listening, and absorbing everything that I can. And then Connors eventually came around. So I'm jumping into that now. And then it was both of us were the runners for these people that got to listen to this stuff. But that's how I started off, was just being dependable. When I first got in, Gary Williams, my coach, my trainer, he said, you're not going to be great at everything. Just make yourself valuable in every aspect so that you can do anything for a company. And like that's been like my life motto anyways, has been like a jack of all trades. Not a master of one, but a jack of all trades. I've had experience failing in a lot of fields in life, but it's made me more knowledgeable in these things. So that's how I got my foot in the door, was just making companies depend on me for all my work.
Okay, I want to get back to that, but I got to ask, that sounds like an amazing opportunity. Was there any of those performers that you had the pleasure of driving around or sitting down with eat that just absolutely blew you away with like the advice they gave or the professionalism that they conducted themselves with, or even gave you actual advice that you kind of took to heart and carried with you?
All of those guys, I was very fortunate. Like I said, it wasn't a lot of talking to them. It was a lot of just listening to them. Like having AJ, Samoa Joe, and Christopher Daniels all at a table at once.
Though that was the same time. I thought those were
like I said, this company was hot shotting. Like they were throwing a lot of money at this stuff. It was awesome, especially as a fan, like from a fan's aspect. But a lot of money could have been stretched out a little bit more to make it more to last longer. But that's another story. But yeah, there was one time all those guys were sitting down at the table, and myself and Connors were sitting across from each other. We're at the end of the table, and they're just telling stories about something happened in a ring one time, and something happened in the locker room here, and remember when we did this to so-and-so, and they did that to so-and-so, and just stories like that. And then there's been other times that throw Matt Seidel into the mix of taking one of those guys, because there was multiple shows that Christopher Daniels was there. There was multiple shows that AJ was there. There was multiple shows that Joe was there. Sometimes they all lined up at once. And it was just like insanity, just like sitting down, listening to these guys. But the one conversation that has meant the most was when myself and Connors sat in my car, because it was raining in, and for 2 hours, Tatanka talked to us. And me and Connors probably got in a combined 10 words like together. And he wasn't like not letting us talk. He was just telling us so much stuff. And that's the conversation that even to this day we look back on. And it's like, oh, that is what kind of kickstarted us to make us be like, we gotta take this a little bit more seriously. And not like we didn't take it seriously, but there's a difference between taking things seriously and being professional.
So how many matches into your career are you at this point?
With
yourself actually performing, give or take?
4. Like maybe so some of those nights after shows I didn't even have a match yet. I just I was still training, and this is who I was getting to learn from. Lance Storm was another one. I got to do one of the seminars before I ever had a match, and I just got to ask him all these questions, and questions that he's like, oh, I was never asked about that before. I was never asked it like that before, and because I was like I think it was Bash at the Beach 90. I can't remember exactly what it is now, but the logo was green and yellow. And the lights, where it was a vinyl logo, the lights were casting like a green hue on the wrestlers. And it just looked completely off. And then he just went into this huge tangent how he hated those logos because they made people slip and everything like that. And he was just like, oh, I could go on for hours just about the logos. He was just like, I hated them. And it's like, oh, okay. he's like, I never really get to chat about the stuff like that. It's always about like who hit the hardest or who was the best in the ring. He's like, but I like talking about little things like that. I asked him how WWE splices their ring ropes, like how they do in the corner, and he explained it to me. And he's like, I've never been asked how to do that. And I was like, oh, I love a good ring. So like me and Connors, we break down like ring setup videos and everything like that. Like if we ever get to build our own ring, it's going to be like the most epic, perfect, like sturdy ring. I can't wait.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of people that are just starting out that want to know about ring.
Yeah.
So you referenced Connors a few times. Obviously, for anybody who knows, that's your partner from Sabotage. How does he get into the picture? Let's discuss that a little bit.
I did work for the company that was bringing in all these people, and they were renting out the ring for a music video. So I was in charge of going to the place and getting all the stuff set up. And a few people showed up to help, and it was just this guy Connors did music for other companies. He actually did music for the first show I went to, the one right before deployment. So we were in the same building, but never interacted, never knew each other, anything like that. And then we finally meet this day, and like we just shook hands, and like right away I was like, there was like a comfortability there. Like, okay, cool.
That's somebody actually your height.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, we're both 6'2". Yeah, he likes to say he's like a quarter inch taller, but anyway, we the whole weekend, like we set up the ring, we helped the people doing the music video, and then we tear it down. And just the whole time, it's just chatting like we've known each other for years. And then we just never stopped talking after that. And then people seen us together at shows all the time, thought we were brothers, cousins, relatives of some sort. And it's like, no, we literally just met. We had a very similar upbringing besides his parents stayed together and mine split up when I was super young. So like that's everything else that we grew up with, though, experiencing was extremely similar. So it's like we are brothers.
So how do you go from brothers to Sabotage?
He pitched it because so many fans were asking if we were like if we're wrestling together, if we're going to be a tag team and stuff, and it was never crossed our minds because tag team wrestling wasn't that popular here in the Maritimes. We loved tag team wrestling; it was our thing. Like we absolutely loved it growing up. And then one day he just pitched it because he's like, "Oh, I had an idea as a wrestler when I was younger, Sabotage. Like that would be the guy's name." He's like, "But this fits so much better as a tag team." And then he played me the Cancer Bats version of the Beastie Boys song, and I was like, "All right, let's go." And we just took off from there. We just never looked back.
So that was a big part of your actual career.
Yeah.
Was there any absolute highlights for you? Because I know Sabotage started to actually get noticed outside of the Maritimes, and you were running circuits even kind of locally to me in Ontario. Where did that actually take you that you weren't expecting?
When we first started, our biggest goal was to work for a certain company here in the Maritimes. And we're like, if we can work there, that's awesome. And we ended up working there very quickly. They actually created what became popular here in the Maritimes because VIP was never a thing before us, but they had nobody for us to work. So they created the Mega Pass. And it was just for us to work 2 people under masks or just 2 random wrestlers to gain some experience. Pay an extra $5, get to see Sabotage wrestle. And it became like this thing. So other companies started doing it. And it's like, oh, well, people are willing to pay $5 extra just to see these 2 wrestle. So that's what got us onto the main card. Because they're like, well, hell, if fans are interested, then let's do that. So that's how we started, was just, there was no spot for us. We created our own spot just by becoming so dependable with companies. Like we busted our ass. We drove 6 hours just to set up a ring.
Not even be on the card, just set up the ring?
Not even be on the card, just help set up the show.
Wow. So you guys ultimately have to take some time apart. Connors gets injured. I know you at that time had to relinquish some belts. and you're heading out on your own a little bit more predominantly.
Yeah.
How's that transition working for you?
It's good. Go back to your last question, kind of question for a second. When we started really like taking off was when people started trusting us with telling stories around here. That's what we felt. And then it got to the point that we would show up at shows and promoters would be like, just do what you guys do. That we had complete trust with the promoters to just go out there and do exactly what we wanted. And then that's when fans started getting super interested in our stuff because we were telling stories that we got to tell. And then that exposed ourselves to more outside. And then that's when it got us first bookings in Quebec for those 12-hour drives. And then it just got extended to 16-hour drives to Western Ontario. And then we got our flights to Ontario. And it was just, things weren't stopping for us. And then unfortunately, like you said, he got injured. His shoulder got pretty messed up pretty bad, almost to the point that he almost needed surgery, like extremely bad surgery. So he had to take a step back, and then it sets me up for, well, I have 8 years at a time experience being a wrestler, but it's mainly tag team, and it's mainly standing on the apron and coming in for like lots of moves, and then coming in for the hot tag. I didn't do a lot of selling. That wasn't my thing. Connors was smaller, was two, so, the two of us, so he would do a lot of the selling. And that's where I was worried the most, is like, am I going to be... Because I preach positioning and safety and everything like that, but now I need to step up and, like, you put more money where my mouth is, that's the saying. And it's like, okay, so that was the thing that really took me the longest to click in on, was the selling of things and the moving and the pacing and stuff like that. And then I started getting messages from friends in the business saying, dude, your selling's gotten much better. Your positioning is much tighter. You're in the right places now. You're not all over the place. And so that meant a lot to me, because I felt I was starting off as a rookie again. Like, I've got 8 years experience of being in a ring, but I've only had maybe 20 singles matches at that point. 8 years into wrestling, I've only had maybe about 20 singles matches. The rest was just all tag team wrestling.
But you are still getting booked in quite a number of places. Is that just based on your previous work rate? Is that connections that you had? Is there a few people that are just kind of pushing for you behind the scenes?
Honestly, I think all three combined on that. My work rate in and out of the ring has helped me keep some bookings at certain places. My connections and like respect for other guys and other promoters has kept me at other places. And then at other ones, I've continued to be booked because of people being like, man, keep him around. Like, he's good for morale. He's good for just like keeping like good vibes going, I guess. And like, that's one thing that I've been trying to do. It's just like, there's so much bullshit going on in the world. And like, we can get into that conversation outside of this. But when we come to wrestling, our job is to take everybody's mind and just bring them into this environment for 2.5. Some shows are much longer, but for the time frame of the show, we want to make everyone forget about bullshit. And like, that's what our job is. At the end of the day, is like, I take my job as seriously as an actor on TV or as, in the movies. Is my job is to make you feel like the money you paid was worth that time frame.
Is there any opponent or match that you had since you went out to kind of the more single circuit, if you want to call it that, that really stood out to you as just like almost like a coming of age moment where you were like, you know what? I can do this individually, or the crowd reacted in a way that you were like, I do have something here. I have more that I can contribute on my own.
Ooh. Damn, that's a good question. There's been a few moments, I guess, like a few times I've come back from matches where people are like, good match, good match, good match, good match. There was two. One was the exact same saying verbiage that was told me, but it was from two different opponents. When I came back and was told it was their, I brought out the best in them. That was their best match they've ever seen so and so have. That's what they told me. And it's like, well, if I can bring out the best in someone, then that's pretty damn awesome. Like that's the goal for anything, is like to help people elevate themselves. And like people have helped elevate me tenfold since I've been doing this tag team wrestling and singles wrestling. But there's been a few moments where it's been like that, where I've come back and people have been like, that's been a great match of theirs. But as for who I've wrestled in singles wise, I can't really put a name on it. Like Robbie McAllister has helped me a lot. I've come back from matches with him from like a psychology standpoint, and how to grasp the fans without having to do all this. And then I just wrestled Sin Bodhi, and I think that's been my most eye-opening experience to date. And that was my second last match since Talking Now. He called that entire match, 99% of it was called to me on the fly in the ring. There was one spot where leading into the double down was called out back, just so we knew, like, okay, we know exactly what it is. I've never had a match called to me 99%. And I missed a couple spots, or like didn't do the exact thing that he wanted or expected, but I'm proud to say like 95% of that match, I did exactly like he wanted to, or in the realm of how he wanted to. So I came back from that one and was like, oh, okay, that was a level up for me. So that was cool.
Can I get into one match that I was lucky enough to see in person?
Absolutely.
It was a 6-man tag. I think you know which one I'm going to be talking about here. You were teaming with Tarek and Trent Seven.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I came up to you after that match and I told you how proud of you I was.
Yeah.
But that match is on YouTube. I'm going to see if I can find it for the description in the video, because I think anybody should see it. But in that match, I watched you put people in place when they were out of spot for a big move that was coming up. I saw you throwing props in the ring when they needed to be there. I saw you jump off of a ladder through a table, and through all of it, you're telling a story. There's utter chaos going around. And in the end, you even got the pinfall with your finisher, the shipwreck, which I actually got to go back and ask how you got to your finisher, because that's also something I've been wanting to know. But did you have any particular feelings about that match?
I didn't know what to expect. I showed up and just like, I'm the lowest on the totem pole for the people on my team type thing. So I'm like, hey guys, just here to be here for you. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm walking into. And then Trent and Tarek like, no, this match is for you. We're going to help build you. It's like Tarek's established in Ontario. Trent is Trent. He's established worldwide. And sorry, Tarek's established much more outside Ontario as well. But I'm just, little Justin from Newfoundland. Okay, what's up? And we go in and they build this match to help build me, which was I'm extremely grateful for. Like, that's the word I'm looking for, extremely grateful for. But I remember showing up and then Iceman and Trent going, hey, come here for a second. Okay. So I walk over and they're like, so what do you feel about jumping off this? I was like, in the ring? Because I don't mind being on ladders, but there's a reason when we do ladder matches, and if we get the belts, I send Connors up. Because in the ring, stuff's moving too much, and I'm like that dog you see getting put on like a cat tree, just like shaking. Like, it needed to be stable. So like, no, out here, jump through a table. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, just like no hesitation, just like in my mind, I was like, but I was like, yeah, sure, totally, let's go. And they're like, well, do you want to get up there where the tape is to see what it's like? I was like, absolutely not. I said, if I get up there now, that's all I'm going to be thinking about all day. I was like, I'll do it in the moment. Like, if I don't do it, I'm bitching out. So like, I have to do it. And then you talked about putting people in position and stuff like that. This is stuff that doesn't. It's second nature. Like, I know if I get an extra person in on that dive, then we got an extra set of hands to be able to help catch the person, and we needed them anyways. The chair spot you're talking about putting equipment in. I realized that they only had one chair in the ring, and they were trying to set up for a table spot. And it's like, well, you need another chair. So I grab a fan. I just threw him. I was like, you'll get it back. And I took a chair, and as I'm getting up on the ring, I yell at the guy. I don't say, come get me, or come get the chair, or anything like that. I just yell at him. Start yelling, I'm going to get it. And he kicks me. And as he kicks me, I just toss the chair in the ring. And I fall back down. And I didn't think anybody would really notice those things, but you noticed it. And then some of the boys back home here in the Maritimes were like, oh, that was slick. Because they see me do stuff like that down here as well. And it's like, if I can help facilitate getting to a spot without making it so obvious, like, hey, man, we're on opposite teams, but here, take the chair. All right, good for you. I'm going back to my spot now. But all I did was, if we can do that and keep the flow of the match going, then awesome. And then I get up on the rung, up on the ladder. And I remember right before I get up on the ladder, I open it up, and I was kind of far away, and George, Iceman, was like, closer. Okay, so I start hauling a little bit closer. And then I look at some of the rookies that are there. They're all dressed in black. And I just go, you better hold this f***ing ladder. But like, I'm very like in my zone. So I'm like, I look back on it. I'm very aggressive about it. But I was very serious about it too. It's like, you cannot let this ladder shift. I'm going up high. So I get up. And in my mind, I was like, oh, I have to get up one more rung. But looking back on it, I actually did jump off the proper one. But I get up, and the guy, to me, looks like an ant. And I was like, all right, well, we're going. And as I'm hitting him going through the table, I go, wait. And then my hip hits. And all my right side hit. And I was like, oh, yeah, like we didn't put no mat down on the table. Nothing. It was just pure concrete with like that gym, like that horse matting. Like very thick rubber. Like, just as soon as I hit, I just crumple down. Yeah, people. I can't remember who came over and checked on me. I think it was. I want to say it was Ken. I want to say it was him, but I can't remember in the moment. And someone comes over and checks on me, and I was just groaning. I was like, "Oh, this sucks!" Like.
You're saying you didn't want to climb the ladder in the ring, and the whole time I'm remembering the venue, and I'm like, but you'd rather land on concrete.
Yeah,
it makes sense. Makes total sense to me.
Sure.
So I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I want to kind of get to some more rapid fire questions.
Absolutely. I think Frank is just he wants some attention. I don't know if you heard him yell at me.
Dream opponents. Who is it that you would still love to get into the ring with?
Hardy Boys.
You didn't even take a second to think about that. All right. Recommend one book, movie, or video game to me.
Ooh. Can I do all three?
If you want.
Okay. Book. It's called Timeline. It's a very random. They tried to make a movie about it with Paul Walker, and it just ended up being like crap. But this was like the basis of Assassin's Creed. Their time travel with like the little codex stuff, and they're going back in the medieval times and stuff. And it was just a really great book. And that's not my type of book. I like autobiographies a lot more. Like, give me anything Corey Taylor, Bret Hart, anything musical. But yeah. That book, I still have it. I'm pretty sure. I'll try to find a picture of it and send it to you, or take a picture. It's amazing. Just it hauls me right into it. Movie. Anything Denzel Washington.
Okay.
Anything Denzel Washington.
Thank you for narrowing it down.
That's very broad. Training Day. Absolute hands down love Training Day. Denzel Washington. And what was the other one? TV show or music?
A TV show.
TV show.
Oh, no. Video game.
Oh, video game. Oh.
It was book, movie, or TV show,
right.
or video game.
I mean, I won't go. I'll be broad about it, but Grand Theft Auto.
Okay.
Yeah,
Not any specific one, just
the whole series in general. If you're going to be a fan of it, you got to go back from the beginning and go right to the end. Like it's a story of itself.
Okay, and worst injury you sustained. Wow.
Sustained. There we go. You got it. 2 that kind of tie. And I took a 3D one time, and there's a reason why I don't take 3Ds anymore. I got spiked on my chest, and I fractured 2 ribs.
Oof.
That was super bad. And then I still had to wrestle a Fans Bring the Weapons match the night after. That was brutal. Still to this day, one of my proudest matches, though, is unfortunate Connors couldn't wrestle on it because of his shoulder. But I had people coming up saying it was the craziest weapons match that they saw in the Maritimes. So that was cool. And then my knee, which I'm still dealing with to this day. Right after we won the Destiny Tag Team titles, I was feeling good. I was like, oh man, my cardio's up. Let's go. I'll take the heat tonight. First time in like ages. I took a clothesline over the top rope, and when I swung down, I smashed the front of my knee off metal. And I'm pretty sure I've got something torn, but not enough for me to stop doing what I'm doing.
If you could go back and talk to young Justin just starting out in the industry, what advice would you give yourself?
Trust your gut more.
Okay, and last question. Somebody has never seen you perform before. They're heading to their very first match with you on the card. What feeling or experience do you want them to leave that show with about Justin Newhook?
That it was real. And I think if you know what I mean there, what I did was my job, and I took you out of the realm of the world for 2.5 hours, and I made you believe what I was doing in that ring was real. What hits I was throwing, what punches I was throwing, what kicks I was throwing, and what anger or any other emotion I was bringing out was real. So in a world of storytelling and predetermination, I want you to feel like it was real.
Amazing. Well, thank you for taking the time. If you want to just quickly let people know who you are and where they can find you on social media or any sort of, federations that you're usually kicking around.
It's Justin Newhook, the Newfoundland Nightmare. Just had my first ever reel go 2 million views on Facebook. No, I'm kidding. I really don't care about those things. I just scared my cat. That's awesome. I really don't care about those things. That was just funny. Shout out to Jody Threat for making me make a reel. She's like, this has to be a reel. Because it was just a good clip. Anyways, besides that, you can get me on Instagram at the Newfoundland Nightmare, all one word. Justin Newhook on Facebook. I don't really use TikTok or Twitter, but if you can find me on there, follow me. I don't really use it, but that's cool. And if you got any awesome cat memes, send them my way.
Thank you for tuning in to Independent Wrestling Profiles. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please do all of the social media things. Like, comment, subscribe, leave a review, and most importantly, tell a friend. We'll see you next time.